welcome into the Young Dad Podcast. Whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, changing dirty diapers, or maybe, just maybe, you finally got a moment to sit back and relax, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. Thanks for being here. And of course, thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Jay. Today's guest is Rob Finlay, who put into writing what so many dads wish they had time to say or knew how to say. He's the author of a brand new book called Hey Dad, a practical, hilarious, and heartfelt guide for young adults learning how to, well, not crash into adulthood. From basic life skills to lessons that only come from oops moment, like accidentally putting diesel into a gas engine. True story. If that's been you, then I'm sorry that no one ever taught you that the green handle is for diesel, not for super clean gas or whatever you thought it was. This book is a gift to anyone standing at the edge of grown up life. But behind the pages is a man who has his own story, his own journey, and a passion for helping others figure out what it means to grow up without losing themselves in the process. So let's welcome the voice behind Hey Dad to the show. Rob, welcome.
Hey, Jay, thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Excited to have you. What inspired this whole book, the book process, and the journey that led you wanting to write this book?
Well, I think the subject matter where I have four young adult children. So for the last 28 years, I've been a father. So I should say I wish you were around 28 years ago when I was a new father, because I'll tell you back then, you go to the hospital, you come back with a kid. I was 26 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. So good for you for doing this. But I wrote this book because for the last handful of years, as my kids have gotten older and have gone into this adulting stage, the questions have become more profound and more important because these are big questions. And so I thought it'd be really nice to write a book that gave these young adults this foundation of things that they should know as they go from this time from either graduating from high school or graduating from college. And the funny thing you mentioned that green handle story, that's really what was sort of the trigger moment for writing the book. Sound asleep, middle of the night, and I get a phone call from my daughter who was in college and she was traveling. Middle of the night phone calls scare the crap out of me, right? Because it's nobody should be calling me past 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
And I get this phone call. It's like, "Hey, Dad, can I put the green gas in my Jeep?" And of course, I'm groggy. I'm like trying to figure it out. Green gas. And finally realized, yeah, it's diesel. She's asking if she could put diesel in her gas tank. Of course, no, you can't do that. But it made me really think, had I spent so many times or so much time on other things, did I not focus on the things that were important, like raising good young adults? And if I didn't teach her this, what else didn't I teach her? And so I set out to write this book, and that's sort of what started it all.
Interesting. Interesting enough. I think that's the goal, right? While we're raising kids. And of course, thank you. First off, thank you for your kind words about the podcast. I wish more of these podcasts existed when I became a dad about 8 years ago. They really only started to come out in the last few years. When I started, that's when I started to find them. But even then, a lot of them were still really young and still getting going. And even now, they're still hard to find. They're still far and few between.
Right,
'Cause
right.
yes, they're dads that are hosting the podcast, but they're not, like, focused on the practical approaches to fatherhood itself.
And I'll tell you, fatherhood, I mean, it changes as you start off, right? I mean, my kids were very different when they were children as they are young adults, right? Their needs, their wants, their fears are all different, right? So, when you're younger, yeah, believe me, I think you had one like, changing diapers and stuff like that. I had no idea, right? And, it's like, but then by the time my fourth came around, I was an expert. I would time myself. But as they get older, I think that's sort of the challenge, and I know it's sort of a cliche, and people will use it, but the time does go by quickly. I know it doesn't seem like it goes by quickly now, but I'm sitting here as my youngest is getting ready to graduate from college, and she's out, and my other three are gone. They're out of the house. They're out on their own, having their own adulting and maybe soon to be parenting moment. So it is a challenge, but as a good father and as a good parent, we're here along the stage, and it's a fine balance between pushing and letting them grow and letting them develop into the young people that they're going to be.
Yeah. And it does go really fast. I just celebrated my birthday a few days ago, at the time of this recording, and I just I look back at, the last, decade, and I'm like, "Wow, I just spent most of the last decade raising kids." That's a weird thing to wrap my head around, and to put into my mind, and it's like, I just a few years ago, I was man, yesterday I just turned, 22 and had my first daughter, and now I'm 30, and gosh, now my kids they're big and doing all these things, and it's just it does fly, it can definitely get away from you very quickly.
Yeah,
But the goal is, like you said here, like, our goal is to raise happy, healthy, good, productive members of society at the end of the day. That's what our goal is, to put good, productive members of society out versus the opposite. Because we don't wanna be the parents that are responsible for the kids that are, uh, you know, taking away from society and not adding to it.
you couldn't have I couldn't have said it better myself. It's funny. It's almost like I've been doing this because I'm obviously promoting this book. I've been doing a lot of these podcasts now, and I go back and forth, and I tell people, and they're like so worried and stressed about raising kids. Hey, you know what? Are they in the right sports? Do they get the right class? Like I've been asked things like, "Oh, should what classes should my kids take in order to get into the best college?" I'm like, stop, stop. You're putting way too much pressure on yourself and on your kid. The bar is set fairly low. Just make a decent human being. That's it. Just put something who's a kid who is, has empathy, who has a little bit of desire to go out and work and provide. That's it. Don't you know what? Hey, if you get that star quarterback, good for you. If you get that musician, good for you. But don't go crazy. Don't beat yourself up. Your kid will be okay as long as you can create a decent human.
Yeah, well, the problem with that is that we it's very easy as a parent to get caught up in what your kid's producing, right? What their product is, what their final outcome's gonna be, right? And we wanna push, 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 push for this great, big, beautiful product at the end that they produce. But then we forget about the process along the way, right? We forget to encourage it. We forget about how the hard work. We forget about the difficulties. We forget about the growth. We forget about the struggles, the challenges, the perseverance, the resilience, and all those things that are learned along the way of the process. And we teach our kids to focus on the product. So they hate the process. They hate the process because they're only focused on the product because you were only ever focused on the product. But we have to essentially untrain ourselves, because we're also product driven at the same time. What are we producing? What's the final outcome? And go back to the process and realize, oh, the work part of this is fun. The work is the fun part of this. The building, the struggle, the challenges, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the day in and day out, the struggles to get to that hard work, because the final product isn't always going to guarantee a promotion or more money or raise or something like that. It's more than likely going to be the hard work you put in along the way. Are you putting in the work to grow, to develop, to challenge yourself, to become something better than you were, to earn that next position, not to be given, but are you doing things to earn that next thing?
Right. And that's where, trying to raise a good adult and a lot of what I try to focus on in the book is that journey, right? Because it really is, life is like a journey. And one of the analogies I use is you've been to the airport and you go in these airports and they have these motorized walkways. My kids and I, we call them the magic carpet rides. They're basically motorized walkways. And I feel like for a lot of young adults and for kids, their life is basically on that motorized walkway, that magic carpet ride, because they get on when they're young, and then all of a sudden they get off, and they're like, "What the heck do I do?" Right? I just graduated from college or high school. I don't know. I mean, everything's been pre-programmed for me, and if you haven't trained your kid or taught your kid how to think, how to network, how to do a bunch of things to problem solve, you're going to have a child that's going to get off that magic carpet ride and be stuck. And that's where they stay at home. That's where they fail to launch. That's where they are unhappy in their life and where they are, compounded by the fact that all they have to do is look at their phone and look at social media to see at least what is presented as the rest of the world being happy and successful. So really important for fathers and parents of young children now is to start to develop these skills that are not. I think people think, well, oh geez, well, should I teach my kid how to repair a car? No, but you should, if you don't want to, don't. But you should teach them how to be self-sufficient with a car, know how that the car is their responsibility. So things like that, how to network, how to speak to adults, those are important life learning skills that they need to have when they get past this sort of adulting stage.
Yeah, no, it's really important because that's, those are just life, and the system's designed to kind of push to always keep pushing you through until about the end of college, right? And then it's on you after that. But there's no practical skills taught anywhere along the way. It's just, go to class, go to class, go to class, show up here, show up here, show up here, do this, do this, do this. Pretty much just show up and you get pushed along. You don't really learn too much on that you actually need. And that's when
I mean, this is you're absolutely right. You don't even in college, you're not learning about taxes unless you're a finance or an accounting major. But then again, they're not really teaching you about how to do your own taxes and why you need to do your taxes and what happens if you don't do your taxes. Or
yeah,
by the way, one of the biggest scams out there is people trying to claim your tax return. So those are things like they don't teach you that. They don't teach you about banking. They don't teach you like, hey, that Venmo and Zelle are not proper bank accounts. They're great for transferring money with your buddies, but you still need a bank account. You still need a checking account, investments, saving early, making investments, having a financial plan or a budget. These are critical to just your basic survival. And you're absolutely right. That, along with get a job, move out of the house, get a car, all this other stuff comes at our young adults all of a sudden right when they graduate. And that's what becomes overwhelming without a foundational approach to going out into the world.
yeah, there's no foundational approach. And I think, I think a story that highlights this truly, especially for our young people now, is if you had to guess, and maybe you've seen this article, what percentage of Gen Zers have bring their parents to job interviews with them?
I haven't seen that number. I don't even
So
want.
I want you to guess. I want you to guess of 100%. What percentage of Gen Zers brought a parent to a job interview with them, like physically into the interview?
1%.
I'm sorry to say. I'm sorry to say 26%, according to a June 10th, 2024 article by Fox Business and the New York State Society of CPAs as well. 26%. But then on top of that, of this survey, the same survey of Gen Zers, 60% said that they asked their parents to find jobs for them to apply to.
Wait, oh, that I believe. That I can that and that's not just Gen Z. I mean, that I can absolutely believe. It's interesting. My day job is actually I've run businesses, and I can tell you over the past 25 years, the difference between the young applicant coming into my office for a first year analyst position versus 25 years later, the analyst that's coming in today is very different. It's very different, and I think it comes down to a lot of there's a lot of things, and you can go back and I'm not a scientist, I'm just a dad and a businessman who wanted to write a heartfelt book to my kids, but I think you can look back and there's some things look, when I was growing up, there weren't cell phones, right? There wasn't really the internet. The internet was brand new for me, right? And so understanding that the level of communication, which is why as a parent today, you need to get your kids to be able to communicate. When we talk about jobs, one of the biggest things that, and part of my book was not me just telling my advice. I went out and interviewed 30 experts in all fields. I interviewed a Navy SEAL on what to do in an emergency. I interviewed a NASCAR Daytona 500 winning NASCAR driver and crew chief about what to do, how to maintain your car properly, right? I figured if anybody knows how to maintain a car and somebody who beats up a car would be a NASCAR driver and a crew chief, tax specialists, insurance specialists, everything in between because it is important. But one of the things that I really focused on was getting a job because young adults, the one thing that they need to know in order to get a job is that you actually have to network. These networking skills that you develop early on are critical. So, those of you who are listening, if your kid is sort of pulls back from people, doesn't want to engage with people, you need to work on that because and I know it's challenging. I know kids would rather go play with their buddies and not hang out with adults. And I'm not saying have your kid with you and with adults all the time, but your kids need to be comfortable talking to adults and to other people. Because when they start to grow and they start to develop socially, and when they need to get a job, your job isn't on your phone. You're not going to go on Snapchat to get a job. You're going to have to go talk to somebody. And if you want a better job, you're going to have to go talk to somebody.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that like, those are just basic skills talking to people, right? And I'm sure well, maybe, have you ever read or are you familiar with the concept of anxious generation, the book?
Mm.
Okay, so there's a book called Anxious Generation, and basically it kind of aligns with what you're saying here. To where our kids now are just they're so anxious because their parents are anxious that because of the parents and because of these kids don't talk to anyone, right? They're so anxious they can't even go up to the checkout person at the grocery store. They rather just go through self checkout so they can avoid talking to someone. They won't go up to the counter at McDonald's. They'll just use a self starting kiosk kind of thing. And so we've created a generation of just socially anxious people, more or less, is one of the key concepts of that book. It's a really good book. I really want to reread it because I feel like I just find myself talking about it more and more lately. So I really want to jump on and reread that. But that's besides the point here completely.
But no, no, it's a great point though, Jay. I really, it's a great point because it really is. If we're basically something's got to change, right? Either the employers are going to change, and now you just get a job through a self-service checkout, right?
But you can't, that's not possible though. I mean, for some jobs, yes, for some jobs, yes. But at the same time, like, life still is life. Like, you still have to interact with people. You still have to, at least you have to work with your kids when they're really young to be able to go to a restaurant and order food with a person and look at someone in the face and say, "Hi, my evening is going well, thank you. I would like such and such." Like, I make my daughters are 7 and 5 or 7 and 4. They're gonna be 8 and 5 this year. We went to Texas Roadhouse the other night for my birthday. Guess who ordered their own food? Everybody, all 4 of us at the table, me, my wife, and my both kids, ordered their own food. And what they do is that we've taught them at their age is while we're deciding, we have them circle what they want on the menu, and then they're able to point to the things that they want. My 4-year-old is a little bit more different, but my 7-year-old, so that she doesn't have to like go back and try to remember, it's already kind of predetermined. She'll circle it, she'll point it out, she'll say, "I want and then she'll use her finger, she'll read it, and I want it with this side kind of thing. And then she makes her whole order. No problem. And I told them, if you want a drink when we go to the restaurant, you have to order your own drink. I'm not gonna order it for you. You have to decide kind of thing. And when we go to the grocery store, they love going to Target, because the Target always has stickers. And so to say, most of them do. Walmart doesn't do stickers anymore, but like Safeway and the stores we usually go to always have stickers. And they're always like, "Dad, can you ask me for a sticker?" I'm like, "No, you can. If you want the sticker, you can ask him for a sticker," kind of thing. And so it's always been that ongoing thing. It's like this is a basic skill, but this skill will serve them so much because if they need help with something, they're like, "Where is something?" Or like, "I'm trying to find this one thing that we came here for." I'm like, "I don't know where it is." They're like, "Can you look it up on your phone?" I'm like, "No, you
Yeah,
can look for someone that works here and go ask them."
it's actually bigger than that, Jay. I think that's communication, but I think what you're doing is you're actually teaching them independence. And I think that's the bigger thing, right? Because it starts with ordering your food for you. Then it starts with, well, here I'm going to pick out your sports for you. Here I'm going to tell the coach that you need to play more because you're not playing enough. Then I'm going to pick out your school for your college for you, right? It's so this is about independence and which is critical, right? Because if you don't, and I think parents look, I've been through it. So it's like I don't want to, it's like the what is it, the pot calling the kettle black or whatever it is, right? It's like, yes, I can tell you my daughters when when they were around at home and so if the light went on in their car, who's the first one they would go to? They're
You.
not right. Daddy, my car has a light on it. What would super dad do? Super dad would run downstairs because there is a point where as they start getting more independent, you start feeling less important, right? And where you're needed more on those later adult life, that later adult time of their life, where it's one thing when they're younger. You wait until you get into those
Yeah.
preteen teen years. That's a whole different.
Rob, I will have to admit there, when it comes, my wife still calls her dad for her car stuff because I have no skills whatsoever when it comes to cars or anything like that. I will Doctor Google it, or actually ChatGPT gives some decent ideas of what it could be actually. So I'll I'll technology it and then pretend like I know what I'm doing and talking about, but I have no clue how to fix it. I have no clue what to do. I'm like, yeah, we probably need to call your dad and ask him to come over and take a look too, to get a second opinion kind of thing, and I'll try to play it off.
In this day and age, you don't need to, right? My dad did his own oil changes, but I can tell you, I've never done an oil change. I go to Jiffy Lube, right? It's like, or AAA maintenance. I go to AAA
Right?
maintenance. Boom. It's not in like when I pay $20 and whatever. And my kids probably didn't even see me do that. So I'm not expecting, and that's the part. We're not expecting you to fix your car, but you need to look and say, hey, as a practical adult, I know right now at my age that if I walk around and there's fluid dripping out of my car, I know that I should probably think about this, right? I know that I need to investigate and think further. That's what being an adult is. I'm not going to go in there, rip in there and start changing out things and swapping out radiators and stuff or cooling systems. That's almost impossible in today's cars anyways. But I need to know. It's knowing that, hey, that flat tire is actually, hey, tires are actually the most important thing on your car. Make sure, and this is something that anybody can do, is put air in your tires. Know how to check the air pressure on your car. So it's not about that, but it's just about these foundational things. Is knowing, not knowing how to fix your car, but it's knowing that your car should be fixed in order to be safe. And that's sort of the foundational knowledge. And it's back to this, this anxious stuff. It's like it is anxious, right? We're not talking, but yet the anxious, it's the parents. We just went through college application time here, right? And it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, the pressure on these parents and the pressure on the kids, and it's like, folks, you're just missing the point of the enjoyment of life by putting so much pressure on each other. You see all these kids on they're crying and stuff because they didn't get in the right school. Who cares? 20 years from later, nobody's gonna care.
No one's gonna care. It doesn't even care in 4 years. It won't matter.
5 years, nobody cares. So
Yeah.
stop putting so much, so much pressure, and you have no idea because you've never been there. It's not like you know, it's not like you've been there and then you didn't go there, and so it's just relax, people.
Yeah, no one's really gonna care. Like, in hindsight, right, none of these things, like, truly matter that we're, like, sitting and crying over, and, to kinda go back to the kinda what we're talking about here, anxious parents, anxious kids, like, there's a difference to when it's well, how do I say this in a productive way? When you see a person on social media crying because they're proud versus crying because it's like, "I can't do that, but I'm making my kid do that, and look at them go and do this basic life skill," kinda thing. It's like, yeah, that's a great thing, but it's like, I don't think it's worth all that emotion, like, it's just a basic life skill that everyone should have kinda thing. Like, we over I think it's good to celebrate it, right? It's still good to, to give it some praise and things like that. That's, like, great, that's good. That's all good. But I think it's where we get caught up and it's like, we overpraise, very simple things, and then our kids think everything that they do is great when it's like, that's just a basic thing that, everybody does. In hindsight, like, that doesn't really set you apart, um, versus, the things that will set you apart in the end. And, it's a lot of it matters. In the very end of it, kinda to get to that point, there's like, at the very end of it, when you're all said and done with college and things like that, like, it's not gonna matter where you went, what you did, as long as you finished and got your degree and now you're joining the workforce kinda thing. It's
Yep.
not gonna matter how much money you spent, it's not gonna matter what kinda car you buy. Like, your degree literally doesn't impact anything else except for your where you say you went to school kinda thing, and what stories you have to tell after that. Outside of that, it's not gonna affect the car you get, it's not gonna affect the home you can buy, it's not gonna affect really your social status at all, because people just really don't care. It's like, "Oh, cool, you got a college degree? Cool. Cool." Um, and honestly now it's not even needed for many jobs. There's a lot of well-paying jobs that you don't have to have a college degree for. There's so many options. And I think that's a key piece of this here too, is like we have to also teach our kids. Like, I have this conversation with my daughters sometimes because my oldest daughter, she'll bring up college. It's like, well, you're 7, you don't got to worry about that right now, but also you have more options. You don't have to just go to college. You don't have to just plan to go to. She really wants to go to NAU because we she lived in Flagstaff when she was younger, and we spent a lot of time there when she was younger and things like that. So she loved Flagstaff. She wants to go to NAU, but it's like you have other options. You can go
Yeah,
to
she's 7, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, okay, I'll tell you what, let's call me back in 10 years. Let's connect in 10 years and see where she wants to go. You know, and these are fun. Like when you're doing this, and this is just comes from my experience, you encourage your kids to dream. It's really
Yeah.
good to dream. Encourage them, keep them focused. Hey, it's good. But then get to the practical side, which is, okay, well, let's think about things outside of just those dreams, and let's build up the productivity and the foundation for you to be successful, right? And that becomes that, going back to that independence, going back to networking, going back to the concept of compounding, which I talk in my book quite a bit. And people always assume when you think about compounding, you're talking about finance. I'm like, yeah, it does apply to financing, right? Right, and investments. You invest a little bit, you save, and it compounds and it creates more, but it also compounds on good habits and good skills. So for example, if you do a little bit of something every day, it will compound and you will get better. If you're learning something, right? You spend a few minutes every day learning the piano, for example. Over time, it compounds and you will become a better piano player or learning to ride a bike or whatever it is that you want. And compounding also comes back to being a good person. The more that you give to your friends, the better relationships, and that compounds to create better relationships. So these are the skill sets that you can start, and these foundational skills that you can start teaching your kids, because having dreams is wonderful. They should always dream, but having these skill sets will allow them to adapt and build to be functioning adults.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also about learning, right? There's a lot of it that you got to learn just to learn. And it's okay to learn things that nobody else is learning. And to be a little bit different and to not be going with the status quo. It's like, well, none of my other friends know how to change a tire. Like, that's okay. You do. None of my other friends are looking into, they're all just looking at these routes for here, right? But you're also having me look into the military and look into trade schools and that. I was like, okay. And the more you know, right? Because that's the duty of a father. That's our duties as father. And that goes way back when. I don't know if you've ever read. I'm mentioning a lot of books today. Have you ever read or heard of the book Point Man?
Yes.
Okay, very cool. Okay, so we found a book.
Yeah, there you go.
We got one. But the concept of that book is really cool, right? To where the fathers would take their children and they would oversee their apprenticeship to whatever they wanted to do, wherever they wanted to go, right? If let's say the dad was a farmer, but the kid really wanted to be a blacksmith, so the father would talk to his blacksmith buddy because everyone had a blacksmith buddy back then, right? 40s, 50s, Great Depression to World War II era, a little bit after. Had that friend because it was the community, right? And they would go and talk to him. Let's say you're the blacksmith, I'm the farmer. I would say, hey Rob, little Timmy, he wants to be a blacksmith. Can he come and work for you? Kind of thing. And then Rob, you would come to me, be like, hey Jay, you know what? My son, little Timmy, he actually wants to learn about farming, things like that. Can we do a trade here? Kind of thing. You oversee his son, you oversee my son, I'll oversee your son. We'll teach them the skills they need to know. I'll come for you for these hours of the day so you can still get your stuff done, and then I'll come to you, kind of thing. We would exchange the time, things like that. We would work out a handshake kind of deal. But then our sons would be able to be overseen by both of us in those apprenticeships and throughout that process to make sure that you are keeping me accountable. Because if I make sure I'm not teaching your son that something doesn't align with you, and vice versa, if you have something that I don't agree with, I can say, "Hey, Rob, come on, don't teach my son that. Don't just teach him the blacksmithing." And I love that you're trying to bring that up, but that's not something we really talk about in our home or agree with in our family, kind of thing. And it would be like, okay, cool, hands off, no big deal, let's move on, kind of thing. So it's really cool, but we don't do that anymore, and it's
It's one of the things I talk about quite a bit is, and you're doing this sort of digitally through your podcast, which is another reason why it's so fantastic. But you talk about this sense of community. And I think fathers on this and parents who are listening to this podcast realize and must realize that the way that we've worked in the past is through that point, man, through the apprenticeship, but it's also as a community helping to raise your children, right? I can tell you, if my buddies, and this is really important, and this is where it also comes back to making sure that your kids have interactions with adults, and that is, if my son is being a jerk and I'm not around, I would want you as another father to say, "Hey, you're being a jerk, don't act like that, right? And so it's helping the community help raise your children. That works obviously when everybody's sort of aligned, but it's helped. I've had guys who have said stuff about, look, when your daughters go to dating age, right, there will be a point where a young man will come to your door, knock on your door, and he has one chance to make an impression on you. And it's going to be in that handshake. And it's the way he's going to give you that handshake, and he's going to look at you and say, Mr. Young, is very nice to meet you. Give you a firm handshake. If he doesn't give you that firm handshake, he doesn't look at you, that will be an impact. And that comes from people in the community saying, hey, you've got to shake my hand. When I come see you, you're going to shake my hand. You're going to look at me in the eye. That's what I did with my kids, as well as introduce them and bring them into business dinners and business meetings.
No, absolutely, and I work with a lot of young men in my line of work. I work in mental and behavioral health, and so I work with a lot of boys. And a lot of common themes that I really try to nail into them is, becoming a high character man, becoming a high character young man, a high value young man kind of thing. Because they all want to be high character men, right? None of them know how, but they all want to be that. So they have this idea, and I start to put these ideas in their head of becoming a high character man. And like, okay, well then if you're gonna be a high character man, and you want to work towards that, what you got to stop doing. That's what you got to start doing. Stop and start, kind of stop doing kind of thing. And we tie it back into the behaviors and things like that that they're doing that they need to stop and change, fix things like that, whatnot. But it's a really cool concept because they resonate with those things, right? And it's very simple thing. It's like, hey, are you when I meet with them at home or something like that? It's like, hey, are you gonna walk me out? Or are you just gonna let me leave, kind of thing. And they're like, yeah. And then they get up and come to the door. I'm like, okay, remember, shake my hand, you know, open the door, see me out, close the door, lock it behind me, kind of thing, and all those fun things. And it's really good to teach those really little things because, I mean, it's just stuff it's really easy to forget to be taught,
Yeah.
kind of thing, and we overlook it so quickly, kind of thing.
Yeah. How do you describe what a high character man is?
It's really simple because I think a high character man is really simple in that process. It's honesty, it's loyalty, it's respectful, it's being outspoken on the right things, being patient, slow to anger, and respectful toward adults. You're not hurting, you're not, you're adding more positively to things than you are negatively to things, and you're not acting a fool for no reason. You mind your business, you run with the right crowds, you're not getting in trouble, you're not doing the things that would essentially break your mom's heart at the end of the day.
You're a
So
good kid, right? Is
pretty
that right?
much,
A good kid.
yeah, basically that's what it is. But it's like it comes back to, like, I relate it back to, like, manhood, right? It's like, okay, well, as a man, you have these expectations. You have these things that you're supposed to be. Not a lot of people like a man that gets angry really quickly. They
Mhm.
tend to stay away from that person. They like someone that's patient, calm, that they can talk to, that will listen, that's empathetic. A high character man knows how to do things for himself. He doesn't ask his mommy to do everything for him, kind of thing. He doesn't get in trouble at school for blurting out and interrupting and being a distraction, right? He doesn't take away from others learning. He makes sure that others can learn as well. He sets an example, leads by example. He's not a troublemaker. He has a good reputation. All these things. All those things are all related. And then I like to tie a lot of things from that into other areas to where the kid may be struggling or what they want to get better at or what they want to learn or kind of where they're at, that next thing that they're really trying to do. It's like, okay, well, remember you're doing this because you want to become this. And then it's a very easy thing. Well, is that thing you're doing? Is that a value of a high character man? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, so what should you be doing instead? What's the correction here? What can we do that's look differently? And it's a really easy tie back kind of thing because they all talk about manhood, but I don't think there's a good definition of that out there, and a lot of good examples of that in media, mainstream media.
Right. Right. It's interesting. I wonder if they're, it's sort of interesting when you talk about that. Is it harder to talk to them later in life or early in life? Because I would think it's sort of a challenge either way, right? Because as my kids get older, right, if they're lacking these core skills, right, or this not even skills, it's sort of um, but they've already developed a huge sense of input, right? They know what a good person is, but they've already set in their way, right? It's harder to change, right? It's harder to change a 55-year-old man than it is a
Mhm.
7-year-old man, right? It's so it would just be interesting. Is it harder when they get older, or is it something that's easier when they get older?
I think there's a prime time kinda age gap for this. It's about 5th grade through 8th grade is kinda like your key area. That's where I mostly talk about it with the youth. The younger ones, it's just, being a good person, being a good young man kinda thing. It's like just being good, things like that, and, trying to correct the behaviors in a more age appropriate way. But 5th grade, and what normally happens around this part is that these boys start liking girls, and they want girls to look at them in a better light, kinda thing. And so that's a big motivator for a lot of them. It's like, okay, a high character man is gonna take care of his hygiene
Yep.
because he wants to be clean, he wants to smell good, he wants to look good. He wants to, he wants people to look at him, be like, "Oh, okay, look, he looks good, he smells good, he's clean, he's showered, his teeth are brushed, his hair's not a mess, his outfits are clean, he doesn't have stains on his shirt, not wearing 3-day-old jeans that smell like booty, he put deodorant on, all those things, right?" So those all relate. So I think 5th grade through about the end of middle school is kinda your window, to try that. I have a couple older teenagers that are about 16, 15, 16 that I've worked with on this. And it's a little bit harder then too, because they're a little bit more stuck in their ways, more or less. And you have to really get creative with that. But that 5th through 8th grade age, I think that's the key window here,
Yeah.
especially when they start to like girls. That's a big motivator. That's a big, big, big motivator.
Yeah, interesting. That's fascinating stuff. Yeah, it's just look. I mean, it's one of these challenges, right? I mean, there's so much thrown at these kids. We sort of forget because we've already been through it, right? I've already been through
Hmm.
those ages, and I'm glad I'm already done with that. But it really is as parents, we really need to focus on what's important and what's prioritized, what is really important in life, and sort of forget about the other stuff. And you're right, that high character man is a good point, because that same thing with a daughter. You want to play respectful daughter, just like you want a high character man, right? And they change. Girls, my daughter, I've been fortunate. I had boy and girls, and knowing that they change through their life, right? The girls are very, at least for me, my girls were pretty easy when they were younger. Teen years got a little bit more challenging, came back, a little fur away, and so it just comes and goes. But it's all part about growing, and part of that journey, as you talked about earlier, which is what this is all about. It's just your journey.
Yeah, no, 100%. So just to talk about some dad specific things here, along the journey here. What are some of those things as you were writing this book that you were more or less surprised that young adults don't know?
I could go on forever on that. I mean, but in fairness, it wasn't just young adults. I learned, right? Going out, whole reason I did all these experts was because I didn't know. I think some of the things that were a little more profound to me that I didn't give enough credit to, actually on the first chapter of this book, was actually the hardest to write, because it wasn't about a skill. It wasn't like, here are the things you need to do to go look for an apartment. It was what to do with your life now that you've gotten off this magic carpet. And it was very profound, because it becomes, now it's more soft, right? It's more, think about what you want to do, think about the things you want to do, think about where you want to be. And that became, what I realized going through this is a lot of young adults struggle with this concept of launching, of going out on their own, because either they're afraid to fail, or their parents want to keep them in the shelter and bubble. They don't want them to go and get hurt or fail. And what I mean hurt, struggle financially. Be in an apartment that's not the nicest apartment, right? It's all of this stuff. They just don't want their young adult to struggle in life. And I understand that, but that was probably the biggest thing. The other thing was, there were a lot of things, and interviewing people, taxes, things like, one of the actually the biggest expense you will have in your life is actually taxes. I didn't realize. I was like, oh, it's the guy from, Jack the Hewitt, the big tax accounting firm. He said, well, what do you think? I'm like, oh, it's your house. He said, no. He said, it's taxes. He said, you will spend more on taxes than anything else. And so it was just surprising when you start hearing things like that. So I think it's just when it's stuff like that that I didn't know, but I don't think our kids know, or the forms. A lot of kids have side hustles, side jobs. Are they filing taxes for that? They should, because the IRS is going to come after them if they're not. Bank accounts, finding apartments, even cleaning. You mentioned a high character man is clean. Well, guess what? There was a study that average adult male, single adult male, washes their bed sheets like once every 3 or 4 months. Like, that is disgusting. Like, when I was, I'm talking to this expert on cleaning and stuff, I'm like, well, I thought pretty much cleaning's subjective, right? Like, my wife is a lot cleaner than I am, right? And but I figured, for the most part, I'm still like, no, she's like, this is gross. Like, if you don't clean like this, it's gross. And so, coming back to that, those are all things. As I say, I really tried to make the book as humorous as possible because life is funny, right?
It is.
We need to relax a little bit because everybody's wound up too tight, and that's where we get anxious. That's where we get stressed. That's why have some enjoyment. It is fun, but it is. There were so many things that I didn't know, and I felt like kids didn't know that I put in there. But it's all really foundational. Once you build the foundation, manners, etiquette, things like that, it just starts to go.
Absolutely. And I think all those things are they all kind of they all tie into each other. They're all there. They're all always going to be there. And it's very easy to miss a lot of those smaller things, right? It's very easy to miss, you know, oh hey, I'm supposed to do this how often? I'm supposed to do this when? I'm supposed to do this, that, and the other because we're so used to our parents, doing things for us until we're like out of the house pretty much.
Well, back to that point too. I told you I interviewed this Navy SEAL, and I interviewed a Navy SEAL and an emergency paramedic because those are things like when emergencies happen and mom and dad aren't around, you've got to handle it, right? And emergencies don't give you the time to go on your phone and Google it, right? You need to know what to do. And some of the things that I learned, like the emergency side, is the biggest thing. And this was a Navy SEAL, and he's been through a lot. And he said, listen, the thing that people need to learn is to relax in a stressful situation. You just got into a car accident, relax, right? You've got to be able, because you can't, when your mind is elevated like that and you're stressed, you do not make good decisions. You put more people at risk. The other thing that was probably even more shocking to me and probably more disturbing, I asked the emergency paramedic, I said, what are the three must have life saving skills for a young adult today? Thinking I already know this answer, right? It's going to be Heimlich, it's going to be CPR, all this stuff. Number one, know how to have and administer Narcan, which is for the meth and these drugs. And I was
For
like, what?
overdoses, yep.
For overdose. He said, that is the number one thing that emergency medical thing that you need to learn how to do. The second, which was even more shocking to me, was calling 911. I said, "But that's not emergency. Like that's calling 911." He said, one of the things that he's witnessed is that young adults, because they lack this sort of fundamental knowledge of what to do in these emergencies, panic and don't do anything at all. They're afraid that they're going to get in trouble. They're afraid that they're going to get in trouble because their buddy just got drunk and they're at their house for the first time and they're passed out and they're throwing up and they're afraid to call, or they've done drugs and they're afraid to call because they're afraid to get in trouble. He's like, you must call. And so those were the two things. So that was the most like alarming thing for me. So those are things that are just sort of interesting that our young adults need to learn as they get older.
Yeah, those are all very practical life skills, right? And it's I think the most important part here is to remember for a lot of parents is that you as a parent are in charge of a lot of these skills we're talking about. You as a parent are the one that's responsible. School's not going to teach your kids all these things. Maybe they'll get really lucky and they have like a good mentor or something at school, but that's like 1 or 2% of all the kids, right? Will get that lucky that will have a teacher that overlooks them that closely throughout their school years and that they'll be able to look back on like this teacher really taught me, this, that, and the other, really encouraged me here or there that like stuck with them for life kind of thing. Like I don't remember hardly any of my teachers, 10 plus years removed. And it's on you parents. It's on you. You are the ones that teach and guide because your kids, they're not going to learn these things anywhere else except from you. And you have to have the knowledge in your knowledge bank. from listening to this podcast, reading books like Hey Dad, and being able to apply those kind of thing. And it's never too late. You may think it's too late. It's like, oh, well, my kid's already a teenager. Or my kid's already, a young adult. Okay, so get to work. You lost some time. It's time to get to work then, and make sure that you're implementing these things and guiding them. Because as parents, we're guides for our children. We guide them how to do things. We teach and guide and help them learn because they don't learn these things anywhere else. They don't learn them every single day also from scrolling Instagram and TikTok for hours. They learn them from you as a parent.
Actually, you have to unlearn what they've learned on TikTok. I think that was one of the things too. Is like all the financial people. I have people from Fidelity Investments and JP Morgan Chase. When we were talking, they're like their biggest fear is you go on social media and they're picking up their investment ideas from somebody who you have no idea has two pennies to rub together, right? And so you have to be able to be the influence of your child, knowing that they're going to get this influence from an outside source, and you have to be the common and the calming reason besides that so that they can make their own decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to help them have a little thing called common sense
Yes, yes.
and help them develop that common sense. And common sense is difficult to learn. A lot of it comes naturally, but you also have to push kind of thing, and you have to be willing to call your kids out. You can't just let them, everything they say isn't right, right? If they say something wrong, they do something wrong. It's like, okay, well, why don't you think about what you should do? Why don't you think about that a little bit? And that's what I found myself telling my kids that a lot. I'm like, why don't you think? Why don't you just think? Just think about it for 2 seconds. Stop and think for 2 seconds before you do your next thing.
Right, right.
That
Sometimes
that's
it's
simple.
easier with girls than boys too. So, yeah,
Very true. All right. Well, Rob, at the end of my podcast, I like to jump into something called the dad zone. Are you ready to jump into the dad zone?
sure.
So the dad zone is 4 questions designed to kind of bring us to the end of the conversation to close us with a little bit of fun. I've heard this people's favorite part of the podcast. The people live for it, they say, just to kind of see what people are gonna say. So first question in the dad zone. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes.
It's the wrong answer here. There's only one right answer there, but that's okay. To each their own. To each
Are you
their own.
kidding me? Pineapple is fantastic with the saltiness of the ham. Oh my gosh.
People say that's what people say, but I just say that I've had many of Italians on here, right? I've had an Italian woman who owns a pizza shop, and on their menu, they do not have pineapple anywhere on their menu.
Yep. And I can understand that. I'm not saying, look, if I have a chance and if people are watching the video, they can see I like food. So I can tell you I love pizza no matter what, but I will eat I will eat a pizza. It's not my first choice. Cheese is always my number one. But if I have to, it's pineapple.
Yeah, if I can get a good meat lovers pizza, I'm in heaven.
Oh, cheese. More cheese. Taste it.
Delicious. Cheese is delicious. All right. The next question here: who are 3 people you'd invite to a dinner party, either dead or alive? So 3 people, dead or alive, that you would invite to a dinner party with yourself.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, so I would probably do Tom Brady. He's one of the greatest. John Elway, and then maybe Roger Staubach. So
Interesting.
three great quarterbacks. I would love to hear the interactions of the way they talk, or maybe Tony Romo. I'd probably swap maybe one of those guys out with a Tony Romo just because of the entertainment. But I think, I love football. I'm a big New England Patriots fan, which is probably wrong on your podcast too, but that's okay. I'm now dealing with what I'm dealing with. But yeah, no, I think it'd be fun to just listen to them. I think that's a tough question because there's so many people that I would love to listen to, right? I'd love to have a dinner party and talk to people, but to be able to about football at that high level, I think would be fun for me.
That would be fun. That would be fun. I would do the same thing, but for baseball. I would bring in some really good baseball minds. I would probably do Jackie Robinson, Ken Griffey Jr., and or maybe not. No, Jackie Robinson for sure. Maybe Griffey, but then either Kurt Schilling or Barry Bonds
Yeah, there
to
you go.
jump in that. Maybe Pete Rose too. Pete Rose, I think, would be phenomenal. So I would, if I was doing like a sports themed one, those would be like my five. I would have to have Pete, Jackie, Griffey, Bonds, and Schilling. Because then
There
I
you
think
go. You only said you got three, right? Is
I know
that
you only get three. I think I would also put A-Rod on the guest list. Like those, oh man, that would just be so fun to talk about the steroid era, the Hit King and Jackie Robinson, all those stories. Like man, like get Griffey and Jackie in the same room. Oh, man, that would be a good time. That would be a good time. Second to last question here in the dad zone. What is your guilty pleasure food?
ice cream?
Specific kind of ice cream or just ice cream?
Once again, if you looked at me, you could tell it's ice cream. I love ice cream. Actually, I'm gonna Carvel ice cream cake. If I had one, if I could only pick one, it's a Carvel ice cream cake if, with the extra crunchies in it. That's my absolute guilty pleasure. I buy them even if it's not my birthday, I'll buy them.
We'll find a reason to celebrate to have some cake.
Absolutely.
I love it. All right, last question here. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a new dad, a new young dad specifically, 18 to 22 years old, who's just starting out his fatherhood journey?
Breathe deep, relax. You'll get this. You're not the first one to be a young dad. You're not gonna be the last. You've got this.
Uh, I love that. It's true. You do got this. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. Hey, look here. If you figure out how to get it, how to become one, then you can figure out how to manage it once you've got it.
And it all works out. It all works out.
Yep. Not
Well,
easy. Not easy all the time. It goes a little bumps up and down, but yep, you'll get it.
those bumps.
Yeah.
Lot. But anyways, to our listeners, thanks for hanging out with us today. And Rob, of course, thank you for hanging out with me today and for writing the kind of books that bridges the gap between go figure it out and let me walk with you. So listeners can go grab their copy of Hey Dad at heydadbook.com, right? And this launches April 26th. This will be coming out then after. So you can go to heydadbook.com. You can support this and share it with other people in your life. And of course, keep showing up because adulting's hard. Take it from us. We're two adults. Adulting's hard. We're still figuring, some of us still figuring it out. And I speak for myself there. But it is easier when we do it together and we learn these practical skills there. And until next time, enjoy your juice box, hug your kids, and let's keep learning how to lead with love, presence, and a whole lot of laughter. We'll see you next time right here on the Young Dad Podcast.